think, technologically speaking, there's any room for ideas of smart contracts or so on? Because you mentioned laws. That's an interesting implement use of things like smart contracts to implement the laws by which governments function, like something built on Ethereum or maybe a dog coin that enables smart contracts somehow.
I don't quite understand this whole smart contract thing. You know, I mean,
So
I'm
it's a,
too dumb to understand smart contracts.
that's a good line. You mentioned that Doge is the people's coin.
Yeah.
And you said that you were literally going, SpaceX may consider literally putting a Doge coin on the moon.
Yeah.
Is this something you're still considering? Mars, perhaps? Do you think there's some chance? We've talked about political systems on Mars, that Dogecoin is the official currency of Mars at some point in the future?
Well, I think Mars itself will need to have a different currency because you can't synchronize due to speed of light,
Hmm.
or not easily.
So it must be completely standalone from Earth.
The future of Mars should be up to the Martians. Cryptocurrency thing is an interesting approach to reducing the error in the database that is called money. I've been thinking about money for a long time. And really, I think it's best to think of money as an information system, primarily an information system for labor allocation. Um, and for practical purposes, it exists in a series of heterogeneous databases, like very different databases in bank mainframes around the world. It moves quite slowly in reality. It may seem to move fast sometimes, and it does with PayPal, which is real time. But it's fundamentally an information system. So I think it makes sense to support something that improves the quality of information with which we conduct the economy.
They're a type of digital money, but instead of being controlled by a central government, they're decentralized using blockchain technology.
And you have the ACH system, which is ancient and still in operation, which allows transfers effectively like a check would be an ACH transfer, but it's not secure. And you've got the credit card systems, which are also not secure. It would be like handing your username and password to a stranger in a restaurant if you buy a meal. So there's definitely an opportunity for something that is better from an information theory standpoint. So and there you can think of it like data on a network. I think is the way to view it. What has the most throughput? What has the least error? What drops the fewest packets? Fraud, for example, being a source of error. And government interference in currencies being a source of error. Crypto is an attempt to reduce the error in money that is contributed by governments diluting the money supply as basically a pernicious form of taxation. But as I've said publicly, we do need to watch out for crypto taking, especially Bitcoin, using proof of work to maybe use energy that's maybe a bit too much and not necessarily good for the environment. So the actual reconciliation may take 1 to 5 business days, sometimes longer.
Money is just a number in a database, and it's primarily an information mechanism for labor allocation. And the current databases are not very efficient. There are these old legacy mainframes that don't talk to each other very well, have poor security, and only do batch processing once a day. It's probably the right move. Well, I think I converted it into more of a full-service financial institution. The consumer, you want to have like all the financial services that somebody needs in one place, seamlessly integrated together and easy to use. I think really care about the consumer. I think a lot of banks don't seem to care that much about the customer. So I think there's an opportunity to be like a really good bank, effectively. I could really sort of wax on about the nature of money for hours because I played a significant role in creating PayPal. Right. And so my understanding of the money system at a fundamental level of how it actually works, the detailed mechanics of it, is, I think, there are very few people that understand it better than me. Yeah, PayPal has definitely, I mean, it hasn't moved much from when it was bought by eBay. The long-term vision that I had for PayPal and sort of finance was to convert the financial system from a series of heterogeneous, insecure databases to one database.
Bitcoin is a candidate for that. It does, I think, some things well, and it's obviously it's evolving, and there are additional things like Lightning being done on top of Bitcoin. Now, there is a fundamental issue with, say, Bitcoin in its current form, in that the transaction volume is very limited, and the latency, the latency for a properly confirmed transaction is too long, much longer than you'd like.
I mean, I think Bitcoin is probably a good thing, but it's essentially, I think it's primarily going to be a means of doing illegal transactions. But that's not necessarily entirely bad, because some things shouldn't be illegal. So it will be useful for legal and illegal transactions. Otherwise, it would have no value as a use for legal transactions, because you have to have a legal to illegal bridge.
Say Bitcoin in its current form, in that the transaction volume is very limited, and the latency for a properly confirmed transaction is too long, much longer than you'd like. So it's actually not great from a transaction volume standpoint or a latency standpoint. But Bitcoin per se is mostly solving for essentially having no throat to choke, decentralized. There's no one who can be coerced in any way to empty their Bitcoin account. Well, I guess they could technically, but on an individual basis, but the system as a whole cannot. And it has an open ledger, which is also quite good. But transaction volume is low. Transaction cost is high. It's actually not great from a transaction volume standpoint or a latency standpoint. So it is perhaps useful to solve an aspect of the money database problem, which is this sort of store of wealth or an accounting of relative obligations, I suppose. But it is not useful as a currency, as a day-to-day currency. Bitcoin is an interesting example, obviously the prime mover on this, but the transaction volume of Bitcoin is low, and the cost per transaction is high. It is, at least at its base level, suitable for maybe an exchange, a store of value. But fundamentally, Bitcoin is not a good substitute for transactional currency.
Right.
And even though it was created as a silly joke, Dogecoin is better suited for transactions. Prices have been soaring for cryptos like Bitcoin, Ethereum, and especially Dogecoin.
Part of the reason why I think there's some merit to Dogecoin, even though it was obviously created as a joke, is that it actually does have a much higher transaction volume capability than Bitcoin. And the costs of doing a transaction, the Dogecoin fee is very low.
Well, it actually started as a joke based on an internet meme, but now it's taken off in a very real way. Created in 2013 and has a circulating supply of 117 billion coins, of which 113 billion have already been mined.
What is it, man?
I keep telling you, it's a cryptocurrency you can trade for conventional money.
Oh, so it's a hustle.
Yeah, it's a hustle.
Dogecoin, just somewhat randomly, has just a fixed number of sort of coins or hash strings.
It's the future of currency. It's an unstoppable financial vehicle that's going to take over the world. The total transaction flow that you can do with Dogecoin is substantially more than, like, transactions per day is much higher than, has much higher potential than Bitcoin. It is slightly inflationary, but that inflationary number is a fixed number as opposed to a percentage.
Right.
So that means over time, its percentage inflation actually decreases. And that's actually good because it encourages people to spend and rather than sort of hoard it as a store of value.